Hi friends, I'm Carmen Cheung, the Interim Co-Executive Director at the Center for Justice and Accountability. Many thanks to everyone who has dropped by today. It seems almost trite to say that we are living in incredibly uncertain times. Like some of you, I am sheltering in place in my home. And I've been thinking quite a bit about this idea of sheltering in place and what that means. It reinforces for me, of course, the enormous privilege I have as somebody who has durable shelter, access to daily essentials, and internet and technology that allows me to connect with friends and colleagues all around the world so that while we are distant, we are not isolated and we do not feel alone. It heightens for me the vast inequalities within our own communities and across the globe. It drives home our fundamental interdependency and the fact that each of us are responsible for the well-being of our societies and for one another. And so in that sense, sheltering in place, social distancing, self-isolation, all of these measures that we are undertaking is an incredible act of solidarity and sacrifice to give the most vulnerable among us a fighting chance to survive this outbreak. And in that way, we are also all living the values that drive CJA and its work. Solidarity with our neighbors near and far, care and concern for our communities, and doing what we can from where we are to create a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive and prosper. This is what human rights is all about, and I am so grateful that we are all in this together. Today, I'd like to share with you some updates from CJA. As many of you know, when COVID-19 hit the San Francisco Bay Area, where CJA is headquartered, it had not yet been declared a global pandemic. But we made the difficult decision to cancel our annual Human Rights Gala because it was the responsible thing to do for the health and safety of our community. As it became clear that California was developing as a potential hotspot for the COVID-19 outbreak, we canceled our international travel to ensure that we wouldn't be inadvertent vectors for disease. We reached out to our partners around the world to see how COVID-19 was impacting them and their communities. We quickly pivoted towards moving our operations to a fully remote setup well before the first shelter-in-place orders were issued in our region. And then we got back to work. Some of my colleagues have asked, well, how is CJA able to continue its work in light of the near-term impossibility of international travel? How are we able to continue our cases, to meet with and support our partners, and to continue our investigations? While our work does depend on deeply personal interactions with our local partners and impacted communities, CJA has also spent the last 20 years learning how to build and maintain relationships with clients and civil society organizations thousands of miles and multiple time zones away. Our staff attorneys have always been on phone calls and video conferences early in the morning and late at night so that we can be in regular contact with our colleagues in Liberia, in Sri Lanka, in Colombia, and everywhere else we work. Our approach to international justice has always required us to deeply engage with communities which may be geographically distant, but share a common goal of accountability and justice for the most serious of human rights abuses. We will, of course, need to modify some of the ways in which we work. For example, sensitive witness interviews, which are more secure in person, may require us to reassess whether we can ensure the same level of safety and security if conducted online. We may need to provide additional support to our local partners to strengthen informational and operational security, and some work will inevitably be delayed. But we'll tackle each of those challenges with the same creativity, rigor, and community-centered approach that permeates everything we do at CJA. The idea of being together while apart is not a new concept for us at the Center for Justice and Accountability. We were built for this. And so we press on. Along with our co-counsel, Deborah Boyce and Plimpton, the winners of this year's Partners in Justice Award, we continue to prosecute our case against Moses Thomas for his role in the Lutheran Church Massacre, one of the most horrific attacks on civilians in Liberia's history. On July 29, 1990, soldiers from the Liberian army murdered approximately 600 unarmed men, women, and children seeking refuge at the Red Cross shelter set up at St. Peter's Lutheran Church in Monrovia, the capital of Liberia. We represent 4 survivors and their families in an effort to seek accountability from one of the alleged commanders of the attack. Our clients are proceeding anonymously because of the climate of impunity that exists in Liberia to this day. Last year, the district court rejected the defendant's attempt to dismiss our case, and we are now moving forward on our claims of torture, extrajudicial killing, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. We developed this case in partnership with the Global Justice Research Project, a Liberia-based organization that has worked with groups like CJA to bring perpetrators to account wherever they may be found, anywhere in the world. However, some of JGRP's most important work is using these transnational cases to highlight the importance of seeing war crime prosecutions take place in Liberia by showing both that accountability is possible and absolutely necessary. We're incredibly proud to be part of this dynamic and inspiring domestic movement for accountability in Liberia, and in seeing our ongoing litigation contribute to that work. We're also actively litigating our case against a man known as Macaco, who was the commander of the Bloc Central Bolivar, one of the most brutal paramilitaries operating during Colombia's civil war. As part of the demilitarization of Colombia's paramilitaries, Macaco accepted responsibility for the murder of over 4,000 civilians. Yet the only accountability he has faced to date is based on the bloc's role as a major narco-trafficking operation. Through this case, currently being litigated in federal court in Florida, we're seeking accountability on behalf of the families of just some of his victims for his role in widespread human rights atrocities. Along with our co-counsel at Wilson Sonsini, we've traveled to Colombia to take depositions of key witnesses and will continue to push this case forward in U.S. courts. We're also continuing to work in collaboration with organizations based in Iraq, seeking accountability for atrocity crimes committed by ISIS in Syria and Iraq. In contemporary conflicts, we're seeing community groups take an active role in being frontline documentarians for the atrocities being committed against their communities. We're working with ethnic and religious minorities to develop evidence for accountability efforts to come. The goal of these partnerships is to ensure that suspected terrorists are prosecuted not just for terrorism-related offenses, but also charged with human rights crimes, such as slavery, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Finally, I wanted to share with you a recent victory. At the end of last year, CJA, along with 8 Afghan and international human rights organizations, submitted a brief to the appeals chamber of the International Criminal Court in support of an investigation by the ICC into war crimes and crimes against humanity relating to the conflict in Afghanistan. We urge the ICC to take seriously the interests of victims in seeing a thorough and impartial investigation into all international crimes related to the conflict in Afghanistan, including the United States torture program. A few weeks ago, the ICC authorized this investigation, an incredibly important first step towards accountability. Shortly after the ICC's decision, however, U.S. Secretary of State Pompeo issued a statement suggesting that the U.S. may target the ICC prosecutors and their families with targeted sanctions. CJA and its partners have condemned the statement, and we will continue to advocate in support of the ICC's work in this critical case. These are just a few of the active matters we're continuing to pursue through these extraordinary times. None of this would be possible without the support of our partners and our community. In particular, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank the sponsors of this year's virtual gala: Wilson Sonsini, Godrich and Rosati, Deborah Voice and Plimpton, Robert Flynn, Gerald Gray and Colleen Higa, the King Family Foundation, Cochet, Petra and McCarthy, Kecker, Van Nest and Peters, Alan and Agnes Mendelson, William and Seema Aceves, Beth Van Skok and Brent Lang, the Honorable Rebecca Westerfield and Ivy Fine, Lokilani Devone and Annette Brands, Stephen Martin and Douglas Schmidt, and Hiro Tanaka. Amidst the precarity and anxiety sweeping through our communities as the scope and impact of the COVID-19 pandemic evolves, I am humbled and strengthened by the ways in which people everywhere are responding, through compassion and recognition of our shared humanity, the very essence of human rights. And I try to summon the incredible resilience and determination I see in our partners and clients who have survived unthinkable atrocity, and know that the only way for us to weather this crisis is together, in solidarity. And so on behalf of everyone at CJA, thank you. Thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for your commitment to human rights. And thank you for your support now and in the months ahead. Good night.